welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17. Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I'm Ron.
And I'm Nick.
And this is our review of Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, starring Chris J. Murray, Brett Shaw, Dan Gill, Ivy George, and Olivia Taylor-Dudley. Directed by Gregory Plotkin, released in 2015 on a $10 million budget, double the amount that any of the other ones even got. Grossed $79 million at the box office. And while that's a lot of money, far, far below the other entries in this series. So I guess by now we need to cop to something that we are finally getting around to finishing a series we started 5 years ago. If you listen to the other Paranormal Activity shows that we dropped here in December for you, you might notice that, wow, everybody sounds younger and there's other things going on. And Nick doesn't sound like he's ever lived in a house. And that's because at the time he hadn't. And Ron didn't have a kid. And so we started the Paranormal Activity series and we were going to do the Ghost Dimension when it came out. And then life got in the way and we kind of missed it. And it disappeared from theaters very quickly. And we decided, well, we'll pick it up when it comes out on home video. And then by the time that happened, we took a break. And then we came back. Then we took another break. So we decided for the end of this year, I mean, it's been a weird year in 2020. What weirder way could we possibly end it for all of you, our loyal fans, by dropping you 6 shows to listen to during the holiday break while you are hopefully able to travel with your family, or if you're not and you're still stuck at home and dealing with all of that kind of stuff, that you've got plenty of stuff to listen to. So we're finally putting a bow on the Paranormal Activity series, guys. I know you can't contain your excitement.
Oh, it's very topical, man. I mean, considering what the plot of this movie is, people stuck at home, very familiar, having some invisible force that could kill you, very familiar. So it's a very topical 2020 review series that we're doing here, but this will be a fun review, to say the least.
Plus, there's the whole Chris Rock Paranormal Activity 7 that may or may not ever come out.
Yeah, they were. There was a note about that because he's gotten involved in Saw and Paranormal Activity somehow now, and the Saw one has been pushed off to 2021. But they were going to make another one in July of 2019. They were supposed to be out in March 2021. I highly doubt that's happening. There's like nothing on the internet about it that I've seen. So the funny thing is, Blumhouse, which has been behind all of these things, said emphatically in 2015, like, no, this is it. We are ending this. Like this, it is time to go, and we're going to go out. And this time, I remember the advertisements. You see the activity, and we're going to see all this. And so I was sitting there on one hand going like, oh, cool, 3D, yes. And I saw this sucker in theaters in 3D, and then walked out of the theater. And the first thing I asked myself was, how is found footage in 3D?
Well, they used to have cameras that would shoot in 3D that you could buy, like commercial cameras back when 3D was all the rage. But man, talk about a huge mistake from Blumhouse. They finally get to see the activity and it looks like something horrible that I'm not going to describe on the podcast that my wife told me that horrified me.
Well, to me, it's like you finally get to see it, and it's like, I saw this back in 2002. This is called PlayStation 2 graphics, but yeah, I had no idea this movie existed until 3 days ago when Jay brought this up. He's like, hey, we got to finish up the Paranormal Activity thing. I'm like, we did the marked ones, and it's like, no, there's one called The Ghost Dimension. No idea this movie existed at all until he said that, and he said it was free on Crackle. So thanks, Jay. My life was, I don't know, very much, going fine until we had to sit there and have to try to watch this 4 times. So,
so Ron, yeah. I saw it in theaters. I think you were commenting. You saw it in theaters as well in 3D?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters in 3D.
Yeah, guys, for this one, I rewatched because I bought it for home release when I thought we would swing around and do it again a year after the time we were first going to do it. And so I actually own this, and somehow or another, I own the 9-minute longer extended edition of this. And I can only tell you that there's a Santa suit that gets set up, and there's a Santa suit gag, and there's extended people talking but not talking about the paranormal activity that makes up the 9 minutes. Like there's nothing else that happens at the climax. There's nothing else about the venom goo that is all that. And there's a little bit longer with the random guy that we'll talk about that shows up at the beginning of this movie that apparently was behind all of this somehow or another. Kent. There's a little bit more of him, but he doesn't really add anything to his character.
Wait, he had a name? He wasn't just Ponytail?
Yeah, I don't know. I looked at him and honestly, forgive me, I thought it was C. Robert Cargill. The now acclaimed screenwriter and used to write on Anything Cool News. Sorry, Massive Worm. But yeah, so that's who I've always thought that was because he looks like it.
He does, but that's really funny.
Yeah, I didn't even realize too that this was a Christmas movie. So I mean, is this going to be in your Christmas like repertoire now, Jay? Is this going to be something where you're going to watch this like between Christmas Vacation and Die Hard? You're going to hey honey, you ready? We're going to put Ghost Dimension on right now.
Yeah, my wife did actually watch this with me. I'll tell you what she thought of it at the end, and we'll talk about the secret Christmas movie that it is. That's another reason I wanted to put these out in December. Ron, you and I've had kind of some discussions offline about secret Christmas movies, and I realized the last Paranormal Activities one, we could do that whole series.
We'll have to pitch it to Tis the Podcast as a surprise as one of their secret Christmas movies.
Yes, they should suffer as we have. So before we give any more and tip our hats anymore, Ron, please do tell us what happens in Paranormal Activity, the Ghost Dimension.
Picture it, Christmas 2013. Ryan, Emily, and Leila Fleeg are getting ready to celebrate that most wonderful time of the year, Christmas, when Ryan's brother Mike drops by for a visit. A permanent visit, because he broke up with his girlfriend and has nowhere else to live. Mike finds a box of old videotapes rummaging for Christmas decorations, along with an old video camera. Mike digs the tapes out, and lo and behold, on the tapes is footage from a familiar pair of girls from Paranormal Activity 3, Katie and Christy, alongside their mother, Julie, and Dennis, the spineless boyfriend from 1988. There are other tapes, though, featuring Christy and Katie doing strange rituals, talking to a mysterious man with a ponytail who looks like C. Robert Cargill, and their creepy grandmother. Strangely, it seems like the girls can see them through the TV. Surely that's no more real than Layla's imaginary friend Toby, the 8-foot-tall, many-eyed goat man. Ryan and Mike screw around with the camera and discover that it's not any ordinary camera, it's a spirit camera. And in true Ghost Adventures fashion, that means it can see into the spirit realm. Hence, the whole marketing aspect of this movie is being the Paranormal Activity where you actually see what's going on. As it turns out, Layla's imaginary friend is a giant black gloppy monster thing that she talks to for hours, and the more the spirit is caught on camera, the more distinct the form it takes, and the more violent it gets. It attacks Skylar, a random house guest, then later it attacks Ryan while he tries to watch his daughter sleep like a creep. As it turns out, the house is built on an ancient Paranormal Activity burial ground, being the very same land for Paranormal Activity 3, just with a different house because that'd give it away way too quickly. And the realtor who sold them the house? Her name was Katie! Ryan and Emily call on a priest named Father Todd for help as they battle with the increasingly violent Toby. Ryan asks Jeeves some pointed questions and discovers the cult of the midwives, who killed that family in Nevada and kidnapped a boy named Hunter, who just so happens to occasionally write his name on Layla's chalkboard wall. Father Todd comes back to cleanse the house and trap the demon, but he's killed and dragged away by Toby. The family tries to finish the ritual, only for Skylar to turn and vomit acid blood like an alien all over Mike, killing them both. Layla flees from the salt circle, and Ryan and Emily chase her down, but Ryan gets impaled by a bad 3D effect. Layla sprints through a portal in the wall of her room and finds herself back in 1992, the good old days, in Christy and Katie's house. Emily finds Katie and her daughter, but by then it's too late. The midwives have gotten their drop of blood, and Toby has been given human forms, looking like a pasty Dr. Manhattan, and presumably just as naked. Emily is killed, with her body tossed at the camera like at the end of the first movie. Layla and Toby join hands and walk away as credits roll.
Now, we've reviewed a lot of horror series that have taken some turns at Albuquerque and some never came back. Have you ever known a series that nosedived as fast as this one did from part 3 to the end, because we all just hate part 4 was garbage, and we called it out for such. We all kind of laughed at marked ones, but it was stupid and ultimately meant nothing because they don't even reference any of it. This thing desperately wanted to get back to the magic that they found when they went back to the 80s and did the part 3. And let's be honest, they should have stopped right there. Like, this is a complete disaster.
Yeah, it's kind of like the the Alien series that we did a long time ago, where really that kind of nosedived after 2, in my opinion, and then even like movies like Hellraiser, where just consistently got worse as they went on to complete abortions at the end. So, I mean, it's not the first series that we've seen or we reviewed where it's been like a complete nosedive, but it's totally one of these series where there's a vast difference between where we are and where we were.
Yeah, and in retrospect, it makes the marked ones look really entertaining. And honestly, for like the first, I don't know, third of this movie, it's fine. Maybe 2/3 of the movie, it's okay. But man, that turn it takes at the end just really kills the entire thing deader than Toby.
Yeah, it becomes this like really bad Six Flags ride or something. Like if Six Flags had a ride for The Exorcist mixed with the Frighteners, that's what the end of this movie is. With the holy water sheet on the pentagram in the fucking living room, and
they were just
barks at you.
They were just trying to recreate the ghost in the sheet from the third one.
Is that it? Because, well, it was horrible. I mean, Toby's still doing his same thing. He still screws the kitchen up and throws knives at them. And all that. Every one of these movies, the kitchen gets jacked. I don't know why, but that's something.
I mean, it just kind of looked like my normal kitchen on an everyday basis.
I mean, I guess I just kind of ask this right now. I get it that Paranormal Activity, this whole like found footage aspect is a shtick, but are we to the point with this where it's like, would you be okay if they dropped it? Where it's like, we're just going to do more of a conventional movie, or maybe we'll do some type of like combination of this first person versus traditional, like, third person style movie. Cause it's just, the first one, okay, that was that was a setup there. The second one, it was a conceit. The third one, it was a conceit. But as we get kind of further in these sequels, it's, at least me as a viewer, I'm to the point where it's like, we can just drop this. It was fine in the beginning. Right now, it feels like it's too much.
Well, the thing is that they've always come up with a good reason as to why you're watching the found footage. The first time Mika was trying to catch the activity. The second time you're watching the security cameras at Christie's house. Basically, the third time it's the 80s and the guy's an event videographer. So we kind of get the throwback and there's all that fun. And then in the fourth one, it was all the Xbox Connect and Alex's laptop that just randomly recorded. And then the marked ones was GoPros. So they've always like found a thing.
They just couldn't find a thing this time. At least not one that worked as good as like, if they had like mashed this up with Unfriended, then I think we've got something, but they did not.
Oh, yeah. And Ron, that's an excellent point. That movie works as it's really a Skype horror movie, like in a lot of ways. And I love that movie. That movie has great tension. Everybody gives good performances. It's fun because it's really well contained.
And the second one works in a really good, is a really solid conspiracy theory movie with building off of the same aspect, but also including a lot of like viral video type of stuff. Where they do things like they work in the unsecured web cameras, they work in the security cameras, they work in just like, red light cameras and stuff. They work all that stuff in. And if you had worked all that stuff into a Paranormal Activity movie, then, maybe you've got something a little bit more reasonable than this.
But Nick, to your point, the hook of this one is that you're going to see the activity or something.
It's like, honestly, it's like when I saw them opening up the camcorder, it was like a bad Ghostbusters knockoff. You know what I mean? Like this technology, like this is like completely custom and everything. I don't know. I guess maybe just because we're in 2020 now and the whole COVID situation, lockdown, I guess if they would make the new Paranormal Activity, it would be over Zoom, right? Or Microsoft Teams. Like that would be the setup now. That's what we're saying.
guess they could. And I mean, look, Shudder has produced a Zoom horror movie, so
Yeah, it's coming out. Yeah, it actually came out at the end of July.
This one, the whole catch is you're going to get to see the activity, and I don't know what I expected to see. What I did not expect to see was like wavy lines that this camera from the 80s can somehow pick up, but modern dig cams can't, and none of this other crap this guy's got in his house. And this guy looks like an effects designer or something like that. It looks like he knows what he's doing with cameras. But this one huge camera is the one that picks up the activity. And then for some reason, it becomes what I can only, flashing forward, think of as like the Venom goo. It looks like the Venom goo from Spider-Man 3 or Venom.
Yeah, that's as good of a comparison as any that I'm comfortable making. You know what they should do? What they should have done? Or what they should do for this one with Chris Rock? Work Twitch in there. Everybody's like streaming stuff on video games. Everybody's doing TikToks. Work some of that crap in there. Give me a TikTok where Toby shows up and just rips somebody in half, like tearing up a loaf of bread.
Or something. That's the other thing, too. These movies have never gone into what I would call ultra violence in any way. Like they really haven't. They've had like a couple of quick scenes. Maybe somebody gets some razor teeth and then they eat the camera. And that's it. Like there's not a lot of blood. It's a lot of jumps and scares and what did you see? And then, then of course they derailed themselves anyway. We go back to that fourth one. It's a bunch of freaking connect dots all over the wall that are moving around, which we've seen that. We've seen Toby run through the dots before. I dare say though, that was much more interesting than anything they showed us in this movie.
Like we've talked about, every movie's had its particular gimmick, and this one they couldn't find a thing other than the spirit camera, which it's the same video camera that Billy Barty's got at UHF, as far as I'm concerned.
The other thing I will say that this movie is lacking desperately is that these people, I don't know why they're here, and I don't know that I want to know. There's some drop line by Nazi Robert Cargill about how we go back to the end of part 3 and we get like an extended ending where now this witch's coven is all being trained by some dude. Now, first thing, that completely undermines the whole like women's coven witch power thing these movies have all been about, that it's just some random dude that looks like he could be working the second shift at Muldoon's as much as doing anything else. That I don't know. What did y'all think about that Kent kind of undermined, that was the mastermind behind all this shit?
He looks like a burnt out Vietnam vet social studies teacher I had. If he had a more of a skullet look, he would have been
deranged Walter from The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, or rather like a deranged dude because he's got the long hair. But yeah,
I thought he looked like a guy that's going to like end up fixing a motorcycle or something. Like you got a blown transmission, he's the guy you go take it to. He's got a pull bar, and you take it in there. He's going to fix it for you. Nice ponytail.
I think that's what he's known as ponytail guy,
or like a guidance counselor.
Yeah, like that got lost in Woodstock and never left.
Because he spoke very much in like those guidance counselor-y tones, like, this is what we're going to do, Katie. Right? Give me some minutes.
That is true. That's a good call. He's the guy that'd be like, yes. Hey, you don't need to listen to what your parents do. You need to go and do what makes you happy. So.
Ron, you know who he is? He's Bob's brother from My Science Project. That's who he is.
Good pull.
He's the guidance counselor at that high school where they had the My Science Project. The other problem is the friggin' family. And this is nothing against these performers. They're giving us everything they can, but Ryan, Emily, and Leela suck. I'm sorry. I hate them, all of them.
And they're not even good. And they're not even good in that way where you want them to die. They're just boring.
Yeah, they're not. It's not a very good cast here. And I guess that's another question here for you guys too. Is like, are we kind of done with like the whole like just what they kind of like the Paranormal Activity slow burn? It's like we've seen this 5 times before, where it's like just kind of the slow like, ooh, he's going to kind of screw around with stuff. Like, ooh, it's like the audience knows what's going on, and I just kind of wish that they would take this stuff kind of like to a new dimension here. You know what I mean? Or like something new, because it's the same movies over and over again. Just like, okay, well, this is in an apartment, this is in a house, this is with an Xbox Connect, thing. It's like, I want something a little bit new here. And they did try something new with the awful like CGI, being able to see what's going on. But as we've learned, like with movies like with like Poltergeist 2 or something, it's like less is more when it comes to stuff like that. There's other things I think that they probably could have done to engage the audience a little bit more. So kind of what is your guys' take on that?
Yeah, there's a way to do that. You're hitting on something there, Nick, that you're exactly right. In the sequel, Jaws 2 taught us, and Halloween 2 did as well, that you've already seen the scare, so why hide it anymore? Show the damn thing. So you see the shark a lot in Jaws 2, and you see Michael Myers butcher a lot of people in Halloween 2. Like both of those people, Rick Rosenthal and Janoke Swartz, knew that you just got to show the monster and let it loose. That's what people are there for. And they wanted to do that with this. It just looked like crap. And I'm sorry. And it's not because it looked like bad in 2015. It looked bad then. I mean, it didn't look good. They spent $10 million on this, and it is trash.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like the whole like Aliens effect. It's like, you've seen the haunted house movie, let's go take it up a notch and kind of change stuff around and just balls to the wall right away. And I thought like that would have been kind of different with this movie, where maybe they're running away from this haunted thing instead of them just staying in a house. Maybe it's something more like the influencer thing, where I'm going to record everything on Facebook or social media for people to see. And it's like this thing chasing after them. Give it some type of motive here where it's going to be like actually like going after someone, as opposed to the whole haunted house slow burn aspect that we get again.
But I mean, if you're going to do this kind of movie, you need to at least make it better than Sinister. I mean, that's another Blumhouse movie that ties us back to see Robert Cargill again, because apparently he's going to be a thing we're going to talk about throughout this entire review. But we've already seen somebody watch creepy old tapes and then scary stuff starts happening in their house. And it was in a much better movie and done in a much better way. And if you're going to do the whole, let's go into another dimension, let's do some time travel, man, Hellraiser 2 was 20 years before this, 30 years before this almost. Even that looked better than this weird like CGI doorway thing.
Yes.
Even Blumhouse has the ability, like with the Insidious movies, to do this kind of thing, and I just don't know why they failed so hard at it.
And it's the same people involved. I mean, the director of this edited parts 2 through marked ones. I mean, it's the writing teams that have been involved. Oren Peli and Blum are producing this thing. They got the same hands all over this thing that they've always had. Going back to the family, you've nailed something there, Ron. And I realized that if Ryan, Emily, and Leela were cast in a Hallmark movie, they would be fine. Because they should be like the family that takes in Candace Cameron Bure and convinces her to give up the city for the small town life, or something, so that they can hook her up with Mike, his brother. Who is
up there, Ron?
I mean, really, you could. Now, I have a question for both of you. Who is Skylar and what is she? Because I have forever thought she was like the au pair, but apparently not.
I thought she was the nanny until we had our offline discussion where you mentioned the drop line where she's some friend in town for a yoga retreat.
It said like in there. I read that on the internet after watching this yet again for this review, and I read that and I was like, "What?" I went back to that scene, watched it, and I was like, "Oh, there it is." What confuses me is there's times she goes and checks on Leela.
Yeah, it seems like she knows this kid really well. But if you're going to have this kind of hippy dippy BS character, make her a Zelda Rubinstein type. Make her like crystals and entities and Reiki, and just give her all of those skills and let her be the one who fights Toby.
Yes, she should have been the redheaded witch from Blair Witch 2, Nick. Like, at least have some tie to this, because she does get the exposition dump about the 7 princes of darkness or whatever the hell they're doing. Give her something to do other than be a confusing person on screen.
Well, they kind of did set it up there with like it being like a yoga instructor. I mean, they could have like taken that a few steps further and had her be like holistic and like all Wiccan or something like that, and be able to kind of tie it in there with everything. I mean, I guess. Is that what we're supposed to take from this? Because that was the one thing I kept on saying, like, throughout the entire movie. I was like, that's a damn nice house. I'm a homeowner now, and it's like, I'm looking there, I'm like, you got nice cathedral ceilings, you got some woodwork, you got some nice woodwork there for the rails. like this is a damn fine house. What the hell do they even do for a living? Because it's like maybe like the wife or something. Maybe she's like an influencer, like a yoga, holistic, vegan, gonna make your own tampons type, person on Instagram. I don't know. It's like it'd be nice if like that could be like brought up or something there, and like tied, like Ron was saying, tied into the whole like Toby aspect.
Yeah, look, if Emily had lived to 2020, she would have an Etsy store. There's no doubt about that. That would be clear. But I like I said, I took
CBD,
Ryan
man,
as
CBD to fight Toby.
yeah, there we go. The CBD Toby files. What I do find funny, though, and I'm glad you called it out, Ron, because it is a total poltergeist ripoff. This is where Katie and Christy's grandma's house was when they were being witch trained or whatever. And then like they got Manchurian candidate by Ken so they'd forget all of it. And that house burns down. And then they rebuilt this house, but they rebuilt it specifically so that like the window is facing the right direction so that they can bow to Mecca and get Toby or some nonsense later. Like it's there. And there's the dropped bit at the end about the real estate agent was named Katie. And I'm like, that's the other thing. Where the hell is Katie Featherston? It wasn't like she was busy.
I was gonna say she got her real estate license. I mean, my God, good for her.
Yeah, she's moving up in the world from psychic cult tool to real estate lady. Like she's number one on the West Side.
She's gonna have her own HGTV show, in the future. It's gonna be like instead of like Fixer Upper, it's gonna be like Fixer Toby or something. I don't know.
Flip Haunted or Flaunt It.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, then, to be fair to Katie, she was never supposed to be involved in this anyway. This was all Christy, and she was going to have this kid and all this stuff. We know what happened with that. But then her asshole brother-in-law, remember, transferred the curse back to her in part 2. So this is all his fault. I just couldn't believe that they're doing the blowout, right? And you don't bring back the one person who's been the star of your movies. I mean, I get why she wasn't in the Mark Twins. Maybe she didn't hang out in the barrio. But you can't get Katie Featherston to do a walk-on. I'm sorry. I'm not dogging her. She's a working actress, but she would have done it. I mean, she said, "I would have done it."
She was even in the Marked Ones.
Well, that's right.
At the very end, she shows up. Yeah,
you're right.
Which is one of the coolest twists that this whole movie series has accomplished, where they sent those Hispanic people through time or through space or whatever, and then they show up and they're part of the paranormal activity that took place in the first movie. That was a great twist. You can't shoot this kid back through time to 1992 and have her show up like on the other side of the mirror with her hand up, like playing Bloody Mary with Katie and Christy.
Or something, or with Leela or something. I mean, you're showing everything else. The other thing too is, and you've hit it there, they introduced time travel into this now. They've already done that with Marked Ones, and now that door is open. And I'm just reminded of that little joke scene in Scream 4 where the girl's talking about the stab movies and how confusing they got when they introduced time travel. And I'm like, man, why did we do that in these movies? Everything else seemed to be so grounded in quote reality. To have these portals of time. And so now I think if I'm to understand this correctly, Toby has been conjured in corporeal form, but he's conjured back in 1992. Is that right?
That's my understanding. Yes, he was conjured back in 1992. That's
okay.
And can we talk about? It's jumping ahead a little bit. Can we talk about how disappointing Toby was?
Yeah,
it's just a giant guy who works his calves. Like it's just a dude with really good calves and big feet. I mean, he's clearly naked. Let's see some butt. Can we get Toby's butt?
I don't know that I wanted to see him. He had that little girl with him. I mean, it was getting weird anyway. My wife and I were like, this is kind of creepy in a bad way.
Okay. All right. So better yet, why does Toby not have goat legs?
Thank you.
Give me goat legs with human feet. That's terrifying.
Yes.
It's pretty obvious though. Looking at those calves, he's definitely a Trek rider. He's the guy that's going to the bike store to fix up his Trek because he rides that bike everywhere. He's the guy that's usually on the back highway and you can't get around him. That's Toby.
So Toby invented the Peloton and tortures that poor woman. That's what he was conjured for. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, he's the guy that's always wearing like, biker shorts everywhere he goes. It's like, oh, he's at the grocery store buying some, coconut water and stuff in the biker shorts and the baggy shirt.
This dude shops exclusively at Trader Joe's. No offense to Trader Joe's. But
that and Whole Foods, yeah.
No, Whole Foods. Yeah, you're right, Nick. Whole Foods.
Yeah, Whole Foods. Yeah, that's that guy.
Toby does CrossFit.
Oh, well, I don't know, though, man. There's that whole Jesus aspect to CrossFit. Toby might be, again, that.
No, if he did CrossFit, half the movie would be him telling everybody how he does CrossFit.
And he's vegan.
So now that we've offended possibly everyone that we possibly could who's listening to this.
Well, Jay, if we're going to, like I said, if he offended people, we only offended people named Kyle. So, it's just...
So we have this family unit, whatever they might be. And we've all talked about how disappointing they are. And it's nothing against the performers. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't think they were given anything to do. And I don't think these people, because they've all worked in other things, I don't think they were the kind of people that could do the level of improv that these movies need. And that's what we've known about the rest of these. Is there's a script, but they kind of let the people just sort of be themselves and be their characters. And they don't have any charisma. I mean, Ryan and Emily are about as boring milquetoast as you can get as a couple. There's that one funny moment where she talks about, like, if you come upstairs, you get lucky, and she runs into the wall. I mean, that was funny, but that's in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and there's nothing else in there about that. Like, I get no reason why they're so, I don't know, close with each other. And I don't like dinging child actors too much because they're kids and sometimes they don't know what they're in or whatever. But I'm sorry, this girl is bad. Like, she is the two girls that play Christy and Katie as kids that come back for this from part 3, who obviously have both grown a foot since they made that movie. They're good. Like, they still do good. The creepiest thing is when they have Christy like forward projecting and talking about that stuff. But the main kid, Leela, she's just no.
And they don't really give her any creepy, unpossessed stuff to do either. She talks to Toby and she plays with her tea set or whatever. She doesn't have tea set. That's for the third one.
She tries to eat the priest. I mean, that's the one thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I've got a 16-month-old at this point. They bite. If you get your hand near them anywhere, they're going to bite you. That's just what little kids do.
But it was definitely not. I mean, Nick, we reviewed The Omen back in October, and she's got nothing on that kid.
Oh, yeah, totally. But, I mean, when I don't know if you guys ever watched like Red Letter Media. Like, they did like a bunch of Star Wars reviews like 5-7 years ago. And one of the most interesting things they brought up about the prequel movies is when you're talking about the characterization of them. And it's like, tell me some defining traits of these characters without using physical descriptions. And like none of them could when it came to the prequel characters. And it's the same with this movie. Like, I'm looking at the characters and I'm like, well, that guy's got like an awful mustache. Like, that's his whole characteristic, is like he's got an awful mustache. And it's just like I said, they're like, they're just hollow characters. There's like no characterization. There's nothing to latch onto at all with these characters. Because if you're going to make a movie like this, you have to be rooting for the people, the protagonists, the kid people in the house. You don't want bad stuff to happen to them. Otherwise, you're getting into like Friday the 13th territory where you just want to see everybody get killed. And that's kind of like what this movie was, because we've already seen it before where we know that everybody's going to die. So it's like, either make these people where you don't want them to die, or make it where you really want to see them die. And you don't get either of that with these. They just are just bland, milquetoast characters.
Yeah, no, they split the difference and they don't give you anybody to really hate. And I feel like that's the thing you need to do at this point, because we've had people that we've liked. We've had interesting people. We've seen, even in the fourth movie, there were at least a few quasi-interesting people. And if you can't come up with a better gimmick than you can see the monster this time and have the monster look like what it looks like, then you at least need to go full Friday the 13th. Give me a body count. Toby needs to kill like 20 people. Let's just do this thing. And if you're going to show him, let's not just show like CGI hands ripping through a chest. Rip that dude in half. Let's do this.
Well, I thought like with this whole thing, it's like they could have had fun with it. You know what I mean? Like, let's say like you have a family or they're in the house and we're expecting them to be like, okay, they're going to stick in the house and it's all going to play out. No, they pull a poltergeist at the end of it and they get over to the freaking Days Inn. But guess what? Toby follows them and he's like tearing apart the hotel staff and everything to get to him. And then they, get there, then they go over to the grandma's house. You know what I mean? Kind of make it like a movie where like you're saying, like he's just raising hell and doing some stuff here, and we don't get anything. We don't get anything interesting.
Let's have him in a car, and let's have Toby start to mess with the car.
Yeah, something change the dynamic. The dynamic has been it's always a house, right? It's always a friggin' house. Why couldn't these people have been on like a road trip? You know, take my brother. He's depressed. Let's introduce him to our friend Skylar. She's kind of cute. Maybe they'll hit it off. They're both into
camping,
fake Kabbalah or something.
Camping. That's good.
Go camping. And just take out like a whole campsite.
Yeah, you're video recording it. They got a boat. They're going out on the boat. He's screwing with them out there, coming up through the water, doing something. I mean, God, I've been to campgrounds before where you got like the public shower area. I mean, you could do something in there with like the water. I mean, there's a lot of cool places they could take this. And it's sad to see it just, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
All right, so just think about this. Skylar's in the shower. The water's real hot. The mirror's all fogged up. And all of a sudden you see one of Toby's giant hands just like with the claws just like bang right in the middle of the glass. That's something. Or his footprints in like condensation, or his footprints on like wet dirt on the side of a lake, or in the sand at the beach. That's a thing. These are all things that they could have done and they didn't do. Put this house on the beach. Let's if we're going to have a bunch of rich douchebags get killed by Toby, let's at least make them the kind of rich douchebags who own a beach house in Malibu.
Right. I mean, it's not like they haven't been those affluent people. We've established that in previous movies.
And plus, too, I mean, you're out there in the wilderness or something like that. Cell phone service. Okay, we can believe they don't have cell phones. And, okay, there's only one way for them to get out of their vehicle. Okay, he screws around with the battery and they can't get out of there. You know what I mean? Now there's a reason why they're stuck. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't understand why these movies don't seem to have more than 5 minutes of like actual like discussion between the writers.
Let's get some dash cam footage of like the wheel flying off of this car and it like rolling over like 18 times. Let's spend some of this money and do a car crash and make Toby the cause of it.
Do something. I mean, we could rewrite this 100 ways.
Or a smart house. Let's have it be a full-on Alexa stop Toby smart house.
I think there were a few years before that happened, but if they were making this now, it would totally work. You're right, which I would imagine was probably part of whatever they're going to do because I do think that they will redo this when they can get back to making movies. But they don't give us any of that, so we got to talk about what they do give us, and what they do give us is lots of floating goo and weird things, and we come up with the quick conceit of why we need to set up all the cameras. I will give this movie two things that I think it does well in terms of like horrific scenes or creepy scenes. The little scene where the little girl gets up in the middle of the night and goes downstairs and starts throwing the pages of the Bible into the fire, and she turns on the gas and she can't get the match to work, and her mother comes down to stop her, and when mom is trying to fish the stuff out of the fireplace, the gas turns itself on. I'm like, okay, that was good. That was well done.
I did not know that was a Bible. They didn't establish that.
It's because it's in the director's cut that she does this whole line about, it's my family Bible. I think it's like a dropped line, but yeah.
Maybe leave that in the movie.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe show us the Bible at some point.
Yeah, that should have been a bigger deal than what it was. And then the other thing is when Mike and Ryan are watching the videos, they found the magic video cassettes, of course, that have plagued these movies, and they're watching Katie and Christy go through their training, and Katie's just sitting over there, playing with Lincoln Logs or something, and Christy is trying to see through Toby, and I mean, that little girl's giving a good performance. And when Leela walks in the room and her daddy picks her up and she sneezes, and then the girl in the video says, "Bless you," like that's friggin' creepy. Like that was well done. The problem is they didn't go anywhere with any of that. They just did that, and then there was nothing else. It's like when you back in the old days, you used to buy an album for like a band you really liked, and the first two songs are killer, and then everything else sucks after it.
Well, I mean, I think at this point they just maybe one of the downsides to this being the sixth movie or whatever it is, and having such continuity in terms of writers and behind the camera personnel, is that they're just out of ideas.
Yeah, I mean, but again, though, I don't know how they could be out of ideas. I mean, we just spitballed like 5 much better ideas here just off the top of our head. And these assholes are paid to do it. And this is the best they could come up with. I don't know. Is this like the whole thing where it's like studio interference, where it's like, hey, everybody's expecting it to be in a house, we got to put it in the house? Or is this just laziness?
I don't think so. Blumhouse is not one to like meddle in their stuff.
No, I mean, for those Into the Dark movies, if you go to Blumhouse and say, this is my idea, here's the holiday it's tied into, they will give you like $5 million and leave you alone. So
what you're saying is we need to go to them with our camping thing, tie it into the 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day, something like that.
Memorial Day.
Yep, let's go do it right now.
There's not good Memorial Day horror. I agree, guys. That we should be the Into the Dark Memorial Day special in 2021.
I think we just made our fortune.
I'm down. Hulu, here we come. So the problem is, though, we've got to finish talking about this goofy movie first. And so, okay, I made a joke about it earlier, but I do want to get the thoughts about the house being built to be a conduit. Okay, that's dumb on a level, but it could work. They could have spent more time making that a big deal, because they spent enough time with Lee and Emily and Ryan running through all their old papers and trying to find who do we buy this house from and all this crap. I mean, I kind of liked that, but I don't know that they did enough to explain that. I've had to watch this movie 4 times to really get that.
Well, there's another dropped line in there where Skylar talks about how she does something that's like feng shui, but not. She should have been the one to be like, hey, this house is really exposed to evil spirits, man.
Yeah, you're right. Her character should have been the Zelda Rubinstein.
Well, they even mentioned it. It's a throwaway line. She talks about it when she's talking about the yoga retreat. Not long after that, when they're in the kitchen and she's talking to Mike or whatever, and she's Mike, and she's like, your mustache doesn't have enough feng shui.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, they could have had her come in and just be like, oh, I sense the negative energy in this house or something like that. Just a couple drop lines with it and then just set her up. But again, though, nothing is written well in this movie at all.
If you make her a full-on turquoise jewelry, I live in New Mexico, spiritualist who eats peyote and communes with nature, and have her fight the cult, have her do white magic against the cult's black magic. And this is a thing. This is the thing that movie needed, and it did not have.
And that's because, and I go back to that opening bit again, that they've totally undermined the power of this cult, because it's just some dude who has recruited all these women to make these deals with the devil, because they dropped this bit about they were raising Toby because he's one of the 7 princes of Revelation or some nonsense. What's the purpose? What is Toby going to go do? Is he going to control the stock market? Is he going to change things, make an alternate timeline? What is Toby's ultimate gain other than to be corporeal and to walk off with a little girl and get some friggin' ice cream? We
already said what it is. He's going to join the Viking squad and go. He's going to go over to France and do the tour. Okay, that's what he's going to go do. He's going to get that yellow jersey.
He's here to bring about COVID-19, Jay, obviously.
Maybe that's his long game. I don't know.
Also, replace Olivia Taylor-Dudley with somebody with some substance if you're going to do that.
You get Scout Taylor-Compton from the Halloween remakes. That's who you get.
You get Scout Taylor-Compton, or if you want to make her like the New Mexico spiritualist, you go out and you get Lynn Shay. You have her phone number. You've got her in every other Blumhouse movie.
Better
have her show up as Britt Shaw's grandmother.
She's Britt Shaw's mother. So I was gonna say she's got to be Emily's mom instead of hot friend that may or may not be the au pair, because that makes the relationship with Leela make a lot more sense. Maybe it was written that way originally. I don't know. 5 people wrote this movie or something. So I mean, who knows?
5 people?
Well, there are 4 that are credited. I can only imagine 12 probably took a shot at it at one time or another.
Oh my gosh! They should all be ashamed.
Yeah. So you had Kevin Smith make a pass on it, and that's why Mike has all those sex jokes and the mustache. And then you have Quentin Tarantino do a pass on it, and that's why you just see that close up of Toby's feet.
There you go. That's it. Okay, we got to talk about the final end here, though, because we bring the priest in. He's the first time he tries to put some holy water on the kid, and she bites him or whatever, and then he comes back, and now he's going to do the big ritual of Chud or what the hell ever, and we have the Frighteners 2 happen in the damn living room.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, Frighteners 2, Beetlejuice, with the sheets. I mean, I could not believe that they were doing the whole thing with the sheet, with the whole possession angle, with like, you got the pentagram on the floor, and like they cover him up with the sheet. I mean, really, is that really? I mean, I get it. It's we're 5 years in the future from this movie, but 2015, we're beyond this, aren't we? As an effect.
At least in the third movie, when they did this effect, it looked cool. This time, it just looked like a CGI sheet blob monster. And
yeah,
let's be honest, this priest should have been somebody. Like the priest.
Yeah.
Actor should have been somebody that we know. Like he should have been like a dude, like James Caan. I don't know.
Miguel Ferrer.
Oh yeah, Miguel Ferrer would as like a ass kicking priest. Like what are the
Danny
jokes?
Trejo. There we go.
He's got the Virgin Mary tattoo. If you had Olivia Taylor Dudley's character say, "I know a guy. He's my Santeria friend," and you bring Danny Trejo in to do some Santeria against this demon, then this movie's great. Like, give me Danny Trejo, like, shirtless, like, bleeding, like, that big Virgin Mary he's got in the middle of his chest, like, comes alive or something. Give me something cool, man.
Yeah, but all we get is a bunch of lights and people spitting up black ooze.
I got you guys beat. Michael Pena doing the Ant-Man routine of all the Toby's complete, like, history.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yes.
He comes in with the priest tie and everything, and he's like, all right, guys, let me tell you about Toby. And he, like, goes back and, like, he's, like, voicing all the different people from the past. That's what we need.
Or you get somebody vaguely associated with the marked ones to come in.
That's what I was saying with the Danny Trejo. You now tie it into these two boys from my parish, and like you could really glue it all together. But no,
and there was a whole Santeria subplot in the marked ones that they just completely dropped for this. So you are definitely in the space to bring in a Danny Trejo or to bring in like any sort of like Edward James Olmos. He's not doing anything. Battlestar Galactica's over.
Something. Yeah. Well, okay, but we don't get any of that. We get Skylar spewing acid blood or what the hell ever on Ryan's. They did. And there's the end of that.
What was that?
Not Ryan. That's his own Mike, actually. I don't know. That's what I was about to ask you.
Has that ever come up before in these movies? Because it's been a while since I've seen them. It was like something out of like 28 Days Later where it was like it just starts like vomiting up this like black alien acid. And I'm just like, well, are we supposed to, like, that's just so random.
Yeah, it got, like, new powers that I didn't know it had this time.
And new powers that, like, weren't good.
Yeah, it's lame. Like, if this is how Toby comes into the world, man, this is bad. You need to rework your deal or something. This is awful. But those we got to get those two out, and then Mike gets it through the back with a goo arm or something. That's a terrible fix. I'm right. You're right, Ron. He needed to be like bouncing off the walls, torn in half. So give me something. I know these movies again don't do the ultra violence, but you got to do something.
Grab him and just slam his head into the wall and like cave it in or something like that. Like just some type of like just quick graphic violence there to just hold your attention. Yeah, that effect was something out of Scooby-Doo. Like, that was bad.
You're ramming a hand through a guy's chest and you don't have blood. I get that you don't want to do ultraviolence, but man, you've already rammed the hand through the chest. Just go ahead and put the other one through and you don't show the gore. You just show the guy like exploding in half. The end.
Just do it super quick. Just super quick.
The black stuff just blows right through him. That would be the cool thing. Like it's using him as leverage to pull down the hall or something. Yeah. I mean, but they didn't do that. Leela runs through the portal. Of course, Emily's going to follow because that's just what you do. And we do wind up back in the old house, and we're in the basement. And I don't know what that is dripping from the ceiling. I guess it's the first sacrifice because Leela drops this whole line like they only needed a drop of my blood or something. And then here comes Toby thunderfooting it through.
It was a very strange ending. I mean, when you're sitting there and like she shows up with the letter and gives it to Marty, and then tells her that, you know, the doc is back further in time. The time travel stuff's just gotten really crazy.
Yeah,
Back to the Future reference there, Jay, in case you didn't get it.
And then Toby choke slams Emily because we have to call back to the first movie where we're throwing Mika at the camera and come with me, little girl, if you want to live, and walks off. And that's it. That's the whole thing.
All right.
But what about the little jump scare though, with the hand at the end grabbing the camera? I mean, that was lame. If that was like what, if this is the movie that they're intending to go out with, and that was the last thing that they were going to show, I mean, freaking lame.
Okay, so Toby's a giant, presumably naked man with magical powers. She should have touched Emily, and Emily should have exploded like Dr. Manhattan.
Right. Something. If again, I'm like, what does being corporeal do for Toby that being a demon ghost thing hasn't done for him already? He doesn't. I don't know why this is happening. It does, and they don't bother to tell us. There's no dropped lines about carnage created across the globe, or nothing. They don't try to tie it into anything stupid. Like it just ends. It just ends with a big bunch of nothing.
Would have been better if you would have just like killed all of them. Like Toby's now alive, or he's in a body. He kills the little girl and just kills like all these other people in the house. You know what I mean? Like, just go crazy. You know what I mean? Even though he's going to be killing people in the past who are alive in the future, just do something weird.
Better yet, he lights the fire that burns the house down, that starts the cycle that gets to the new house or something like that. Do that. Have him light the house on fire as he's walking away.
It's a great idea. Yeah, anything to like close the time loop in this movie. Then he goes back in time and he has sex with Michael J. Fox's mom, and then we get Back to the Future too.
That might only explain Back to the Future too, but that's another day on Donahue, as they say. Well, guys, I think we're at the part of the podcast where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings and close the loop on Paranormal Activity. So, Ron, please tell us your rating for this movie, and then, if you will, rank the series in order of how you liked them.
All right, so I got to give this one a small popcorn. It is the most like disappointing entry of this franchise. It's just like, I mean, it's just not any good. Like, for a movie series that has some pretty high points, it just kind of ends with a really like loud, wet dump, like down its leg onto the floor. Because like the last third of this movie makes the first 2/3 of this movie look like the third one, which was my favorite, or the first one, which we all agree is like a highlight of the series. Man, this one just, we never needed to see Toby, the goo monster, flying around. We never needed to see anything like that. We never needed the spirit camera. We've come up with much better ideas than the spirit camera. So, yeah, small popcorn, dead last.
Nick?
This is like, it's bad. This is a small popcorn. It's like, when you look at this series and everything like this, like if this whole like series was like the Hemsworth family, this is like Liam Hemsworth. It's just, it's bad. It's, no one should have to see this. And honestly, it's like, it took me 4 times to get through this. It really did. And I had to finish this up about 5 minutes before I jumped on with you guys, because I kept on falling asleep, and I was falling asleep at 7 o'clock. I in the morning watching this. I mean, it's just a bad movie, and one that I don't know how. I mean, you're telling me that like this is the movie they were planning on going out with, and it doesn't make sense, as being like a satisfactory movie. It doesn't even make sense plot wise. This would be the last one they go out with. So, yeah, just small, nasty, stale, burnt popcorn that you just are going to toss in the garbage. But ranking these movies, I would have to go 1 is the best in my opinion, followed by 3, followed by 2, followed by 5, followed by 4, and then this thing at the end. So that's my ranking for them.
Yeah, you guys have said it right. I mean, this is total small popcorn, but sometimes small popcorn can be fun. This is definitely I thought I hit 2 minutes, 30 seconds on my microwave, and I accidentally hit 4 minutes, 30 seconds. And I wasn't paying attention, and I turned it into a brick. And I'm just searching for kernels of something because it's my last pack of the Boy Scout popcorn I bought, and I don't want it to totally go to the trash. And even doing that, there's just nothing of substance to it. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't build off of all the cool shit it built up to. And that's what's so disappointing about it, is that they completely flatlined the landing, missed it totally. And I can only hope is if they do indeed go and do another one, just act like it doesn't exist and pick up and do something interesting off of this, because this is a complete misfire. The likes of which, I mean, again, we talked about movie series that have derailed and stuff, but I can't think of one that completely just lost its wings. And for the whole movie, there's two things that are cool about it. The rest of it is just bad. So total burnt small popcorn, horrible movie. Ranking wise, the third one, man, is just genius. It totally works. Love it. The first one, I like Mark one's is the middle one. I think that's a funny one. It's a good aside. The humor in it's great. I guess I would say 4 and 2 are kind of like right there together for me at the bottom part. 2 has enough in the back part of it where it starts to get fun and stuff starts happening. 4 is just dumb, but it's at least like watchable. This movie is, I'm with you, Nick. It's hard to watch and get through it. It's an hour and 27 minutes long if you're watching the theatrical cut. It's barely 80 minutes of movie, and it's hard to get through. The fourth one you can at least get through because the teenagers they cast were good in it. They weren't given anything to do, but the Connect thing was kind of fun. But yeah, but it's bottom of the barrel we're talking about. The truth is, if you want to watch Paranormal Activity, folks, like honestly, watch the first one, the second one, and the third one, and just stop. Like, there's no reason to ever pick up with anything else. Mark ones is only fun if, like, you have a group of people and you want to laugh and think, like, what would Paranormal Activity be if it was in a lower-income neighborhood and, with some Hispanic kids? And those kids are great at it. But otherwise, the first 3 are all you need. And that third one, again, is masterful. So, especially compared to this. So, yeah, small popcorn and ick. But boy, fellas, it's been a lot of fun. Wrapping up a weird 2020 with you guys talking about Paranormal Activity, finally putting a bow on this big series.
Okay, Jay, before we put the bow on it, I have to ask Nick a question. So you mentioned Liam Hemsworth. So does that mean you have Liam Hemsworth behind Luke Hemsworth from Westworld? Am I reading that correctly?
There's a third one?
Yeah, he's on Westworld. He's the fat buff guy from Westworld, the security guy, Ash.
Oh boy, I didn't even know there was a third one. My gosh,
he's like a Hemsworth but short.
So he's kind of like the Billy Baldwin of the family.
Yeah, I guess. I forget which Baldwins I like and which Baldwins I don't like.
It's usually better not to like any of them. So.
Well, it has been a fun year here on Film Strip. We've done a lot of interesting stuff, some of which we've name dropped on here, some of which we've kind of teased what might be coming down the road. Here in December, though, again, we wanted to have some fun and give you guys something to enjoy during the holidays, whether you're traveling or not, and you're just out and about. We wanted you to have a good chunk of podcasts. So hopefully you enjoyed these 6 that we've done here as kind of at the end. But we're not done for the year, Ron. No, it wouldn't be the holidays if we didn't join up with our friends from Tis the Podcast. We got one more little treat coming for you right around New Year's.
Yeah, and it's a movie that has been a meme here in the Film Strip Podcast studios for quite some time. We joined with our friends Tom and Anthony from Tis the Podcast to talk about New Year's Evil. And that was a blast, and I wholeheartedly recommend you to check that podcast out because the 3 of them are just really funny. And also throw them $1 on Patreon and listen to my guest appearance on the Fireside Chats because I'm also really funny, at least in that environment.
You're always funny on these shows, Robert. Yeah, and look, watch New Year's Evil because it's on Prime, and it is a much better watch than this Paranormal Activity movie. That is for sure. But lots more fun stuff coming in 2021 from us here at Film Strip, folks. Thank you for joining us for this podcast. Obviously, please subscribe to the show, whether you find us on Spotify or Apple or Google or wherever you get us. Filmstrippodcast.com will take you to the place where you can find all those links. You can see our back archives. And we pulled these out of the vault. I mean, they were an finished series, when we relaunched in 2019, we said unfinished series are going in the vault until we either finish them or we just don't pull them back. And so we pulled this one back out. You never know what we might pull back out of the vault again. So leave us a review, share the show, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at FilmstripPod and Filmstrip Podcast on Facebook as well. So until next time, for Ron and Nick, I'm Jay. Thank you for listening to Filmstrip.
Thank you for listening to Filmstrip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Filmstrip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.